see, we were trying to work through a couple of the questions that we have about this rendered effects and why we're having issues with certain things like why the rendered effect yesterday was not moving to the orphan clips. Do you remember yesterday, actually I'll probably just keep this with me. Do you remember yesterday that when we had the sequence and we did a dissolve that was 12, or the first one we did was 25 frames long, and then we didn't check it in, you could see that it was in the unchecked in Avid Assets folder.
Mm-hmm.
Then when we checked it in, it went to the folder that we designated in the interplay folder settings. Great, it was there. Yesterday, for some weird reason, I don't know why, it might be an access version issue, maybe. But yesterday, when I said, okay, let's undo that effect, let's put a 12 frame dissolve on there, what normal behavior would be that dissolve 1, the one that was 25 frames long, should move to orphan clips.
Right.
But we weren't seeing it there yesterday. And I don't know why. I don't have an answer. I'm going to write up a long email and find out if there's an issue. Maybe we could do, I'll write an email, get everybody's email addresses actually. Just do me a favor, just write down your name and email address. And I'll send an email to everybody, to Avid as well.
Just give me mine. I give you.
You have, you gave it to me, yeah. Maybe.
I can give you the second one.
If you already gave me the one, yeah, just maybe I'll get
That's
everybody's
for
email.
release. Okay.
Yeah. And the other, yeah, so then I don't know why that happened. Today, with the version of Access, we put a different version of Access on there. We're seeing the correct behavior as far as unchecked in Avid Assets. If you put the 25 frame one and then you put a different one, it now moves to orphan clips, kept media, so that a media manager can delete all these effects that are not in use. But we're not seeing the effect that's been checked in when we do a search. We see it when we look at the folder, but we can't find it when we do a search. So, unfortunately, I would rather continue to teach, just so you get a general overview of the system. But admittedly, it's bothering me, because I want to troubleshoot it and I want to find out, but I have to keep going. I want to keep teaching. So.
Ну, сейчас вот может попробовать, кстати. Может быть, появилось уже рендер-эффект, если у нас как бы догадка, что
С чем связано?
со временем, да, обновления рендер-эффекта.
What's that? This one? You want to do a search for that?
Просто не знаю, в каком этом находитесь.
So one of the things that I was going to show you today is that there's ways to do all kinds of searches. The default search, the search tab is always here. The default search is to do a simple search, okay? Just by text. And there's a couple of different parameters here that we can talk about. But there's also a way of doing an extended search. With an extended search, you can set your parameters for what you're searching for. So for example, if I'm looking for text, I can just literally paste in that exact effect that I was looking for. And then I can add parameters to this search. I can say, okay, what is this? That's the text. But what type of item is it? So if I look under type, it'll now give me all the different types of objects that I can search for in my database. So I can look for master clips, motion effects, sequences, subclips. I'm gonna go ahead and look for a rendered effect. So the type is a rendered effect. I can add another parameter. I can say creation date or even modified date. Okay, so creation date, anytime, or, oops. I like this not within, just as a little tangent, I like the not within from the media manager's perspective, because the media manager is saying, okay, I want to search for things that are not within the last 2 weeks, for example. You can do like, you know, not within the last month. Oops. But you never see it until you scroll down, which is a little frustrating. I like the not within one, last week, okay, last month, etc. Because then they can purge things that are not within the, so anything that's 2 weeks or a month old, they can keep on the system. Anything that's older than a month, they start to delete. But anyway, that's a tangent. So we're gonna do, creation date is today. And let's see if we can find this. Now earlier today, this was not working. So it may not find the clip, but let's see. Don't know why. The date and time on this machine is correct. If I went to the Interplay engine, the date and time on that machine is essentially the same. So I don't think it's a mismatch in creation date or anything like that. But I'd have to dig into this a little bit deeper. But we can see that effect, I'll just say type, get rid of type,
А не может быть проблем со временем?
just do creation date.
На композере, где создавался эффект.
It's
не
not
может быть
finding
проблем со
anything in
временем?
the
Он здесь
database.
создавался.
А, на этой же машине. Окей.
Okay, now it is. So what did I get rid of? I got rid of type and I got rid of creation date. So it's finding the media file.
But it's all the old one. Very old one.
It's finding it.
Старый какой вообще?
Very, very old one. It's in creation.
Ну, вчера
Oh, is it
сделали.
an old one?
Я
Yeah.
понимаю, просто на каких серверах может стоять плюс
Sorry.
Волгоград.
Ну, понимаешь, все остальные мастер-клипы он нормально ищет.
I don't know why it's not finding it. I'm very sorry. I don't want to slow down. I think this is, I'm going to put a positive, I'm going to be very American here, okay?
Yeah.
Everything's positive. But the positive thing is we're learning how to use the search tools, okay? I'm teaching you how to use extended searches. Some of the things that a media manager might do is they would, let's turn this into a positive and let's go into the book, which I've got in here. Here is the 213 book. I'm going to do a quick saved searches. That's supposed to be quick. So,
Тоже не надо будет.
nothing I'm searching for
Сервисами
today.
поиска на территории. Давай. Да, случай берем.
Extended. Page 22, it's probably an offset. I don't know what the offset is. too, because I think it's around 10 pages. Okay, so it's more than that. So, let's show you your saved searches that I wanted to show you. Here we go. He's got a bunch of saved searches somewhere in this screen grab. Like this. Incoming media 1 week. Unchecked in Avid assets that are 1 week. Expired reservations, so you can do a search for reservations that have expired and just purge those. You don't have airspeeds, but something that was coming into the incoming media folder. Typically, what we have the users do is we have them copy the clip from incoming media to their bin or their folder. So they do a metadata delete only from incoming media, and this is for greater than 30 minutes. So if the duration of the clip is larger than 30 minutes, you might want to get rid of that, especially if it's not in use. So how can I run some of these searches? So incoming media that's maybe older, not within the last week. So what a media manager would typically do is they would say, okay, I'm going to not search the entire database. I'm only going to search the incoming media folder.
Лёнь, а зайди под администратором, может быть, что-то у меня с правами там.
Где, в композиторе или в Access?
Ну, в Access, да.
Maybe we should use administrator.
А политекст не поддерживает там всякие звездочки, то может быть там просто untitled есть.
He's an administrator if he's seen Orphan Clips, I think.
Потому что вчера мы находили там с несколькими другими названиями, может быть там.
Нет, у
Там
него реальные названия файлов.
Да.
Это реальные названия файлов. А мы ищем по базе данных.
В базе данных может быть где-нибудь в конце пробел забился случайно.
Нет,
Давайте
мы же
попробуем,
вообще
да.
не ищем имя, мы же
Анталь.
ищем любые
Критерий
рендеры.
имени мы тоже задали.
Нет, критерий имени... Ну, мы и без критерия имени искали.
Тоже не
Та же
находим.
самая ситуация. Если ты просто ставишь найти все рендер-эффекты за сегодня,
Да,
без
сегодня.
дополнительных критериев, то ровно так же он не находит.
Как бы очевидно, если он не находит, это какой-то сбой, несоответствие критерию, формальному критерию методов, к которым мы предполагаем, а которые реально работают.
Ну, по идее, он должен совпадать.
Ну,
С нашей точки зрения.
значит, по идее,
С нашей точки зрения. Ну, с точки
там
зрения
может быть
этого.
много чего в самой базе данных.
Различий типов может быть. Полей, например, и полей, которые мы ищем.
Нет,
Вот по мастер-клипам проблем вообще никаких нет.
то есть это
Ну,
не как
по
рендер-эффект,
секвенциям,
это
соответственно, тоже
не
проблем нет.
проблема search engine как такового.
Проблема
А
регистрации
да,
да,
соответственно.
проблема регистрации конкретно рендер файла.
Учитывая, что у них еще что-то менялось от версии к версии именно с рендер-файлами. Вот.
Получается,
Процесс.
атрибуты поставлены, значит,
What is more?
How many save searches we can store?
That's a good question. I don't know if there's a number, that there's a limitation as to how many you can store. I've seen 20. The media manager basically sets up a bunch of saved searches that they run every day. So they'll come in and they'll just literally run, okay, here's my 10, 15 searches that I run every day, and they do metadata deletes. Typically, they don't do media deletes from the saved searches. And then they do it depends, every facility is different. So some post facilities, news facilities, they have different workflows. But a generic workflow would be metadata deletes. They do all their searches, they delete all the metadata, and then they delete from orphan clips. And that's when they delete the media, typically. And then when they delete the media from orphan clips, they know that that clip doesn't have a relative, doesn't have a subclip that it's associated with or a sequence that it's associated with. And they feel comfortable that they can delete from orphan clips. The other thing is, normally a media manager, when he's doing a delete, would make sure that he has a reservation on the folders that he just is, excuse my language, fucking paranoid about. Even if he's deleting from Orphan Clips. Prior to version 2.3, if you look, without going into too much of a tangent, if you look in that what's new in interplay deletion document, it talks about how there was a bug prior to version 2.3, where sometimes, if you were deleting from Orphan Clips, you could potentially delete media. So what the old workflow was, is you just put a reservation on the folders that you made sure, you wanted to make sure you kept them, and then you would delete from Orphan Clips. That has been fixed. It's something to do with referenced assets. There's a whole document in here called What's New in Interplay Deletion. That's in your extras folder, if in case you were interested in it. Okay, so it's in here. There's this extras folder, and I've got all of this material in here. And there's this last one, What's New in Interplay Deletion. It's a very good document to understand how this deletion process works. Point being, to get back to my answer, normally they would do metadata deletes and they would purge from Orphan Clips. Okay? So let's look at, but I don't have an answer for you as how many searches. I don't know, but I'm sure you could have 30, 40 searches that you can save. So I don't know, does anybody remember how I saved those yesterday? So let's look at the searches that I have here. Incoming media that's 1 week old. Okay, let's look at that. Let's run a search and save it. So instead of doing a simple search, I could do an extended. I'm going to search that folder, incoming media. Okay, I'm going to then do type is masterclip. Now this incoming media folder isn't as much in use here, but it is with Transfer Manager. But with AirSpeeds, Avid has an ingest device. Has anybody ever heard of AirSpeed? That's what Avid uses. That's our product for ingest. It has to create an asset in incoming media. It's hard-coded into the, it actually has a Transfer Manager client built into an AirSpeed. So it's actually using Transfer Manager, that service, to check assets into the Interplay database. So Transfer Manager is hard-coded to always check in assets into the incoming media folder. In the AirSpeed configuration, you can also designate a project folder or a catalog folder. So typically what we say is for operators and end users, look, the asset is in your project or your catalog folder. Go and get the master clip from there. So typically what ends up happening is media managers have to go to the incoming media folder and they look for master clips. And then they'll do a search for creation date, for example. And then why I like to show you that scroll bar. Not within this last one, the last week, just as an example. So now they run that search and they find all these master clips in there that are not within the last week. And maybe they purge and do a metadata delete. So they could see here that there's a lot of them in there that are older than a week. I'm not going to delete all of them, but what he would do is he would basically then say, okay, let me go and delete that.
Так он их еще ищет. He's still in process.
He's still searching, yeah. So here's another thing that can happen. So anyway, then he would just do metadata. And what's nice is if you train your users to use this button, which says select metadata only, that gets them in a good habit of not choosing the associated media as well. Because if they choose select all, now they're literally choosing to delete media as well. Okay. So I've run that search. How do I save that?
There's a button.
There's a button. Save it. Incoming. 1 week. Do I want to make that only for myself? Or do I want to make that public for everybody? So if I make it public, everybody can see that search. Save as new. Where is the saved search? To be honest with you, I don't like the way that the software now shows them to you. You have to have a new window. I actually liked it before. The searches were always sort of saved here on the bottom, but I think people complained because they were always saved at the bottom. So they no longer save the searches here. You have to go to a window. So go to View. So show the Save Searches pane. And there's that search. So if I run it, it will run this exact same search that I've just run. So what was the other one? Maybe we'll make 1 or 2 more and then we'll move on from the saved searches. Unchecked in Avid assets that were 1 week old. So this was one that typically you'd have to run for pre-computes, for example. So you could it's basically the same search, but instead of incoming media. So what I can do is I've already got the search set. I can just highlight unchecked in Avid assets and hit OK. And I can see that it already has the same parameters. But instead of maybe doing master clip, I could get rid of that parameter. Creation date not within the last week. And I could run that search. Now this is going to take a little bit of time if I run it. But it's going to find everything that's not within the last week in unchecked and Avid assets. And then I could save that search as well. So you're seeing what these media managers would be doing, and they'd be purging. Okay, not in your book, but in that What's New in Interplay Deletion Guide. I'm not a database guru, even though I'm up here pretending to know Interplay really well. I hope I'm doing a good job of pretending, but I'm not a database guru. So you may know a little bit more about how databases function and work. But as you can see, it's taken quite some time when you're doing these searches. If you've got a lot of objects in a specific folder, there can be a similar problem with deletion, where you can actually slow down the database a bit if you're deleting hundreds and hundreds and thousands of clips while people are working. So typically what Avid would suggest is that you shouldn't delete more than 300 gigs at one time, or 2,000 objects, or 300 gigs at once. Are people deleting more than 3,000 objects? Yes. Are people, more than 2,000 objects? Yes. Are people deleting more than 300 gigs at one time? Yes. But that's sort of the threshold that Avid says to try not to delete more. In this document, What's New in Interplay Deletion, rather than go into the document and read everything, what I will tell you is that as of 2.3 or 2.4, there is something that you can choose that's called a scheduled deletion. what am I getting at? Right now you're seeing visible links in the database. Remember I told you that once you can see a master clip, it might be in incoming media, but that same asset might be in a project folder, and it might be in a catalog. So one, one video and a couple of audio files might have multiple metadata links in the database. But what I told you is do metadata deletes, and once you delete the last visible link, that last visible link will go to Orphan Clips. When it's in Orphan Clips, there should be no more associations, there should be no more relatives. When you delete from Orphan Clips, you're actually deleting the real asset. And that process of deleting that real asset can take some time. So there's something called the scheduled deletion, which is, let's just see if I can show you. What is this? Yes, good. This is a little visual of what I'm explaining. Maybe this will help better than my English. So here's your visible links. This is the real asset. Media files that are assets for assets that are not reserved. So what happens is when you go to delete and you choose to delete the media, it actually deletes those video and audio files instantly. Then it deletes the visible link. The last thing it deletes is the real asset in the database. That process, that last part of the process is the part that takes the longest time, deleting the real asset within the database, and places the heaviest load on the Interplay engine. In addition, this part of the process does not provide immediate feedback. So they'll get a dialog box, and when they say gonna delete 2,000 items, they don't get any progress. They're just, the screen sort of just hangs there, and you're saying, what's going on here? Give me some feedback. So you don't see any feedback. You can see the files deleted from shared storage, so if you wanted to, you could go to the ISIS and see that the media is gone, and the media is offline in Media Composer. But within Access, you don't get much feedback. So you can see that the links are deleted from Access. The Interplay Access Delete dialog box remains open for however long it takes for this delete to happen, until the entire deletion process is complete, which results in wasted time for the media manager. So I don't know if you've had any complaints from your media managers about this process can take a long time, or if they've been given any type of a workflow. But there is this new feature now, which is a little bit complicated. So if I don't do a very good job of explaining it, it is in this book. But you can schedule this process until later in the evening, if that makes any sense. So the video and audio goes away instantly. The visible links from your folder structure go away instantly. But this process, the part that takes a long time, you can say, well, let me schedule that till 2 in the morning. So in the book here, and I'll show you, since 2.4, it does asynchronous of this. So it's not at the exact, you can schedule it. And let's just show you what it does. It puts it in the kept media folder, okay? So there's all this description, which you can read, but basically, let me just show you. If I go to the Interplay Admin tool, over here, under Delete Behavior, I can enable a schedule. Personally, I would avoid this first one, which says allow scheduled deletion during database backup. If this was me, I'm gonna let the database back up without, doing something else in the background. So I would not typically allow scheduled deletion during database backup. I would let the database back up and then do my deletion. But I can choose this, permanently delete assets and associated online media from the Orphan Clips folder. So I'm telling it to delete them. I can now add a time period. So I could say, okay, from, let's say, 3 in the morning until 4 in the morning, I can have this delete those assets. So that now when the editor is when the media manager is doing his deletes during the daytime, because this is enabled, that real asset that you don't see won't be slowing down the database, and it will be purged from the system according to that schedule from 3 and 4 in the morning. So that's when the actual delete that's going to slow down the database will potentially happen. So does this make any sense to anybody? It's a little bit complicated. If you wanted to know more about it,
То есть некое задание на удаление.
Все поняли.
so the options that you have, you can enable the custom schedule. The options allow scheduled deletions during database backup. Personally, I don't know, I'm paranoid, I just wouldn't do that. By default, a scheduled deletion stops when an interplay backup begins.